good.
Okay, stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our county board meeting. I call this meeting to order. We start out with the agenda approval.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add one item if we can, Extension Committee appointment.
Okay.
Throw it under administrator, would be fine.
We need to pull item 7A. We did not get the materials in time.
Okay. All right. Is that it? Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public input? There being none, we'll close public input. And now consent agenda. Any items to talk about or poll? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that consent agenda is approved. And then employee recognition. Let's see, in Parks and Rec, we have Colin Hoyt, Parks and Maintenance Worker, began seasonal position on June 27th. And Sheriff's Joshua Harris, Dispatcher Jailer, began full-time position on June 27th. And Social Services, Rebecca Hooterlick, eligibility workers. Oh, there she is. Hi.
Did he get that right, your last
He
name?
did, yeah.
Wow, you got good.
I got a cheat sheet.
You're right.
All right.
Nobody ever does, so congratulations.
Yeah, all right, well, congratulations on your 10 years of service on July 1st. All right, and then we got Clarence Plates, Collections Officer, began full-time position on July 3rd.
It's Clarice. You said Clarence.
Clarence.
You said Clarence.
Okay. Sorry.
Third grade.
Okay. All right, wow, congratulations. Okay. Hopefully I don't get any others wrong here. Solid Waste, we got Leo Gartner, certified attendant. Number 1 is recognized for service from July 3rd through July 3rd, 2018 through July 7th of this year. Colin Current, certified attendant, began full-time position on June 20th. And Gentry L. Donnie, certified attendant 1, began full-time position on June 26th. And we welcome those people on board.
I thought there'd be a line this morning. I went to solid waste. There was nobody there. It's like it pays to have the 4th of July in the middle of the week.
You should have been there Monday.
I could about imagine.
Monday was awful.
Yeah. Okay. Jed?
Good morning.
Good morning.
A few things for you today. First on our agenda is to review the application of calcium chloride to CSAH 23 from Trunk Highway 64 to the Cass County line. This was the topic we brought to you at the last board meeting. Kind of gave the public an opportunity to contact us, submit anything, to the contrary or in support of. Our office did not receive anything. Did you? Yeah. So I guess that's where we're at. So our recommendation holds. This is a very busy gravel road, very tough to maintain. So the current conditions, especially with the dry weather that we've had, washboardy, very, very dusty, and we're losing valuable aggregates off of it. So we would hold with our recommendation that we do apply some type of surface treatment on this. The recommendation would be DuraBlend, and I've got in your packet there the estimated cost for it, right around $15,277.
I'm surprised too. I emailed a resident that's been emailing me about the road,
Yeah,
to have nobody here is kind of surprising, but
it's very.
I'd make a motion to approve.
So I would just clarify that the motion would be just to rescind the direction from 2020
Okay.
and let the highway department manage this road as they manage others.
That's what I was really saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ever getting tired
Well
of the dust?
said, Ted.
We have a second?
Sure.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
Very good, thank you. Next on the agenda, we've got review and approve quotes for our annual weed spraying contract. So that's the updated quote that I submitted to you this morning. This has been kind of an interesting quote process. We don't have a lot of companies that are able to come in and do this amount of spraying for us. So we have the two that had quoted the project last year for us. And so we sent out to them again, made it available to anybody else that wanted a bid on this as well. And in years prior, we always had somebody from the Parks and Rec staff do it, and it's too tough with their workload to count on them to be able to take advantage of all the good weather days to do it. So that's why we're going out for quotes, and we budget annually for it. And so after discussions on this, the original proposal had an end of July completion date. That's when, with discussions with Greg Hensel, that's when we would prefer it to be sprayed. I was informed by both spray companies that they spray late into the year, and you still have a good take on it. I think the last year's application didn't get finished until right around September 15th. But anyway, we put July 31st for a completion date. The one quote we received had that as a completion date, and the one said we wouldn't be able to do it by then, we would be able to do it by the end of August. And so then I had again talked to Greg Hensel about it, and he said, yeah, 1 month probably isn't gonna make that much of a difference. That contractor was the low at the time, but to be fair, I did contact the other one to say, hey, if we had an extra month of availability for you, would it change your quote at all? And so this is the final quotes, with both of them expecting an August 31st completion. And with the two quotes received, my recommendation would be JH Lawn Solutions out of Solway, since they are lower, $31,500. And he also informed me that he totally expects it to be done by the end of July anyway, but with that extra month, he could cut pricing a little bit. So that would be my recommendation.
Is this then the same weed spraying that Greg does, or is it in additional?
Nope, this would be it'd be the same, but what we've done is we can't afford to do all of our county roads every year, and so we broke the county into thirds. And we did the north third last year. This is the middle third. We'll do the lower third the following year, and then we can jump back up to the north. So you get about a 3-year rotation on what we're doing.
Thank you.
So you recommended JH Lawn, that's higher in here.
Nope,
Unless
On
I got
your-
the wrong one.
on your new one. That's the one I just handed out,
Okay.
sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, we have 35,000 we have budgeted for it, so it's all covered.
I'll move to recommend the low bid.
I'll second.
all right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes.
Very good, thank you. And third thing, review and approve quotes for 2 1/2-ton pickups for the engineering department. And a little more history on this is we've been trying to get pickups through Enterprise Fleet for quite some time. And as a timeline, to give you an idea of what we've been dealing with, it's been really tough for the suppliers to get vehicles from the manufacturers. And so we had placed an order back in October of '21 for 2 pickups for engineering. We expected a lengthy delivery process on that, but sometime in August, maybe even September of '22, we were informed that those orders were canceled. And we needed to get back on the order list as soon as possible, so then we ordered 2 Dodge pickups at that time. And the only status update that we've had since then is that the order is received, but they have no build dates. We had 1 pickup that was applied for NRM. That one is at the dealer, not quite ready for us. So they are making some vehicles, but we just haven't been able to get any for the engineering department. Enterprise now has concerns that those orders will also be canceled, so they're encouraging us to get back on the orders for 2024 vehicles as soon as possible. We tried with General Motors. Enterprise put in a request for hundreds of vehicles, 300 and some vehicles, and they were allocated 2. It's not good for fleets right now. The manufacturers are able to sell these vehicles at MSRP, so they're not giving the cuts to the fleet. We just can't get vehicles. And then they want us to go back in for a couple of Dodges too, so those would be 2024 Dodges. Again, don't really know the availability of them, when we would even get them. So we started looking locally, and I did end up getting 3 quotes. Thielen Motors was able to find 2 pickups that meet our specs, and Park Rapids Ford was able to find 1. Interestingly enough, as you see, the one from Ford came in right between the 2 Thielen pickups. These would be owned specifically by us. They would not be leased vehicles. And so that's maybe a little bit of change from where we were headed, but when we're able to do this, the latest quotes that we received from Enterprise for those latest Ram pickups are actually even higher than these, and then you would add on an Enterprise fleet maintenance cost to run the program administration. So cost-wise, it makes sense to stay local. These vehicles are available, but it does change our course of action on how we're doing our rotation of vehicles. Currently in our office, we don't even have enough pickups for, like, our interns. They're sharing one SUV. It's an older SUV, not in the best of shape, but that's what they're using to get back and forth to the projects. And so we're not even fully equipped to have our interns in vehicles. Sometimes they'll grab Jeff's pickup or another one that's hanging around, so.
I'd have more of a question maybe for Jeff on this. How much longer can we keep doing or do this before the value in the enterprise contract is basically non-existent?
Well, I would actually probably defer. Jed and I have talked about this, and we know the difficulty in getting the fleet vehicles through Enterprise right now. The vehicles that we have managed by Enterprise are still of value to us. But so honestly, we're at a point where we have to do a blend of things that we purchase and things that we have managed through Enterprise and see if that comes back around or doesn't come back around. One thing that I think would be helpful, I don't know if it would be at budget time or some other time that would be appropriate, would be an updated vehicle inventory and just identify where we're at so we know the balance between managed and owned vehicles. Jed's office is perfectly capable of taking care of these and budgeting for them and making sure they get the service that they need. And the thing that I like about the Enterprise program is the fact that you're rotating them out when they still have high value and operating new vehicles. So my hope would be that even on the vehicles that we own, we would plan to own them for that 2 or 3 year period so that we're rotating them out while they still have high value and driving vehicles that are under good repair. And in my mind, a benchmark on that is when you need brakes, it should be somebody else's problem, right? So if you're doing oil changes and basic service and filters and things like that, by the time you get to 50 or 60,000 miles, you really ought to be thinking about trading them in just because the value of the vehicle in the current conditions is more there than getting. What I don't want to do is go back to the period of time where we drive until the wheels fall off, right? That I think the Enterprise opportunity demonstrated that driving new vehicles and trading them off regularly is a better value to us and to the public. And obviously, working with our 2 local sources, we would be able to do that directly as well. So I think if we could just make sure that we have a list and we show where we at leased versus owned, they're perfectly capable of making that determination, identifying those vehicles, and bringing decisions to you like this. So what does it mean? I don't know. In 2 or 3 years, are we back over the hump where fleet vehicles are of value again, or have we reached a point where that's changed and that's not going to come back? I don't know. But the stuff we have managed and the stuff we're getting for law enforcement is still working at this point. So we kind of basically have two parts to the fleet. I've had the similar conversation with Scott, and we'll keep an eye on it there too. But this recommendation makes full sense. I would just want us to make sure we know what we have in lease versus owned. And in the fleet for social services and the rest of the car fleet, we're able to get vehicles there.
Yeah.
We're just not able to get these pickups right now. So,
I fully agree with what Jeff is saying, and this isn't a problem created by Enterprise. It's not a fault with their program. It's just where we're at with the times right now. And so for us to keep our fleet going, That's why I started looking locally at what our other options were. But yeah, like I say, it's nothing that they created. They're struggling with it too. So yeah, maybe a few years down the road, we're not dealing with these issues, and then we have all the vehicles that are built for us. We've got them on a good rotation again, and we just bring them in. The nice thing about the lease program is that there's several ways to get in or out of the lease program. We're never stuck. We have equity in these vehicles. You know, we can pay them out until the lease is gone, or we can dump them when we think that the value is better to get rid of them to the program. So yeah, I can put something together as far as where we're at. This is owned by the county, this is leased, and here's where our plan is for the future. But as of right now, we could sure use 2 vehicles. And I wouldn't be looking to get rid of any. We would keep the 2 vehicles that these replace with our full-time engineering techs, and then keep the ones that they're currently driving for our interns. And we can use them for maintenance duties or anything, so.
I like this flexibility that we're showing, not just being locked into the lease vehicles. What was it, just a few months ago, one of the vehicles went to the sheriff's department for their, pulling their boat around and stuff like that, you know, so we kind of got a mixture of stuff going on here. And you need a couple of vehicles, and like you say, maybe this order gets canceled too, and now we're down the road, these vehicles are gone, what do we do next, you know, so I think it's a good plan.
From a budget standpoint, this would have to come out of our equipment reserves for this year, as we weren't budgeted to come out and buy full price on it. But it is offset a little bit for the monies that we anticipated to be spent on the lease program. And so these would not have a recurring 5-year cost to them. So it gets offset in a way, but we have equipment reserves to cover these purchases.
Any more questions?
No, I'll move to approve as suggested. So the first 2,
Yep,
one
I would-
from Thielens and one from
Correct, yeah.
Crabbs Ford.
Any further discussions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's
Very good.
approved.
Little project update, you right?
Yeah, projects currently going are gravel contractor, bulk dirt service completed their gravel resurfacing, county, in the northern half of the county last week as scheduled, and Envirotech Services, our chloride contractor, is still working. They should have everything wrapped up as scheduled by the end of next week, approximately the 15th. Layton Construction's completed all the underground storm sewer repair in Akeley on Grayson Avenue, and their subcontractor is currently completing, and should by the end of this week complete the concrete curb and gutter and sidewalk repairs associated with that. And then we'll look to have the paving completed approximately the middle of July by another subcontractor. The project on our County Road 119 is essentially complete, and of course that includes our County Road 82 and then a road for Nevis Township, and then another street section for Todd Township. There's some final cleanup and some minor issues and erosion control that needs to be touched up on within all those different sub-projects, and we look for that to be completed in the next, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. Beyond that, I know that on one of these LRIP jobs, 204th Street for Henriet Township, the contractor there, Northern Paving, had rescheduled their start to this week, so we look for them to get started either today or tomorrow on regrading and paving that 1 mile of road for Henrietta Township. And they're anticipating having it completed before the end of the month, so we'll look to see what transpires there. Hopefully it's good. And yeah, beyond that, that's all we've got currently active. We're of course anticipating other work to get started on our County Road 9 up north with Hawkinson, and we got a couple bid lettings coming up middle of the month for our County Road 7, and Lake Emmett Township's got a section of road that they've piggybacked under our contract, resurfacing of Hunter Drive, and then trail projects scheduled the week after that, isn't it? Didn't you
Yep,
put that on?
correct, 17th.
17th for that, so.
Can you refresh my memory, is the road in Arago Township, you know, is that, the paving there, is that piggybacking off of somebody that's doing something else?
Yeah, their subcontractor, Gladen Construction is a prime contractor, and they've essentially completed the grading and.
Yep, I
and
saw
seeding.
that.
And from what I understand, their subcontractor, which again is Hawkinson Construction, they're expecting them to come in the first part of August, actually, before the
Oh, okay.
paving gets started there.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. We don't know what their schedule is.
Right.
100%, but that's what the information I got from their Gladen superintendent for that project, so.
Okay, thank you.
They're the same contractor that will be paving our CSAH 9 up by
Yes,
Besida.
that's what I figured, it was gonna
Yeah.
piggyback off of something else. yeah.
Right. The projects aren't technically tied, but. yeah,
Right, but
right.
it'll be in the area.
Yep, correct.
Yeah, they're indirectly associated, yep.
So are we gonna be able to sneak that trailhead project into the Henrietta job?
No, nope, upon our review, number one, it's a different scope than what the road project was, so it's difficult to ask a contractor to come in and do that. And we actually think that, you know, like a local little grading contractor would probably be the best to do that, and probably a smaller paving company to come in. It just wasn't gonna work time-wise and wasn't really a good fit to do it, but yeah, we need to have further discussion on,
Yes.
The bike path,
yeah.
yeah. Cause this
Some
weekend
signage and
again,
stuff.
people were parked,
On their own?
yeah.
I checked that out a couple of weeks ago, and that's a pretty small parking lot,
Yeah, it is.
and I could see having to open it up some more even, and
Right. There is the issues, there's a well there. I don't know if that can be sealed. That would really help things. Give the ability to expand kind of both ways in there. I think you can go a little bit to the east already, but a little bit to the west would be nice too. You got all kinds of land there to make
So
it
are you
work.
thinking you're gonna take down all the trees? So people can actually see it from the, cause I think part of the reason I haven't driven into the parking lot, you know, and people are on the road, but
Can't see.
unless you know it's there.
Yeah. I think that's the issue is it's just so convenient. They just pull in one of those two spots and they're right on the trail. But yeah, if we give them a nice parking area over there, some good signage, I think you can maybe change the, kind of the parking culture, we'll call it.
Can we, Corey, have you been out there? Okay, so you know the issues. Can we put that on the agenda for Friday's Public Safety Transportation meeting and discuss scope and next steps?
Yeah. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Moving on to natural resource.
Well, morning. Just one thing on for our agenda, report here. We're looking to buy a new, skid steer mounted brush mower. The 12-year-old one now, the 12-year-old mower we have now is worn out, costs quite a bit to replace and fix parts on it. So we're just looking at this one that, this company south of Bemidji has, Northwoods Attachments. It's a Hubbard County-based company. The cost would be $5,650, and it meets our quality and specifications needed. The second quote we got was out of Detroit Lakes at $13,485.07, and it would be available in 6 weeks. So quite a bit of a price difference, and the one from south of Bemidji would be available now. And this mower would fit right on our Bobcat skid steer, and we'd use it to mow hunter walking trails and accesses to different places in the forest and Deep Lake. Eventually, we can mow them trails. So, yeah, just looking for approval to purchase this front-mounted brush mower. So.
I see quite a price difference. That's kind of surprising between the two.
Yeah, yep. So
I'll make a motion to approve the number one.
I'll second. Any more discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
thank you.
Approved. Thanks. And Human Resources was canceled, so on to Administrator.
Yeah, the first item I have is an increase in the hours allocated for the administrative assistant in the administrator's office. The background information addresses why that. I think when we were doing strategic planning initially, before we hired an administrative assistant, we had all the communication items. At one point, the comment was made, well, the communications can just come out of, with that position, they'll have capacity for that. Well, at 20 hours a week, we don't really have time for that. Denise spends most of her time on agenda development and minutes and management of those items. So the increase of up to 10 more hours a week is what we're asking for, to have more capacity for that. We have several items in the strategic plan and under communications that coordinate with the new website and the new intranet that are intended to provide more regular communication for the public, for the board, and for internal public, or internal communication to the staff. These include quarterly or bi-monthly newsletters for the public, probably bi-weekly updates for the staff on the intranet, and just generally keeping a string of communication to internal and external partners. We've also kind of initiated the idea of identifying the one or two items on every agenda that require a press release and drafting those and having, getting those prepped and out to the media. Even in the times when I'm drafting the content, Denise spends a lot of time then pushing that out to the media partners and making sure it's published in the right places. So I put this in on the budget for 2024. But we're coordinating and asking that we would do this effective now, if that works for you. Like I mentioned, it's gonna fall within the total budgeted dollars for the administrator account for this year. And it doesn't push it terribly far, because we're pushing up to 30 hours and not past 30 hours, so there's only dollars and hours and not benefits associated with this.
Yeah, checked the amount that you have, and through the end of May, the amount that you're using, you would, if it kept that going at that rate, you would have $14,952 left over, so the money's there.
Yep, and it's up to 30 hours a week. It's still relatively flexible. Denise is still planning on working Monday through Thursday and not working on Fridays, and then working longer into the afternoons on the days where we have project work that we're working on and scheduled work. So that's kind of the maximum about that.
Are you, for 2024, are you proposing the 30 hours a week?
Up to 30 hours a week in
Okay.
2024, and the financial impact is $14,000 for a full year. We're showing about $7,000 of impact to this year. And as Tom mentioned, I read the same financial reports, and that we should be able to carry that this year.
And Denise, you want to work another 10 hours?
Oh, yeah. That was a top question.
We've had that conversation for several months, and
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes.
And then this next one, 8B on the capital improvement plan, should be relatively simple. We've been through the entire process. We held the public hearing, and this is just to approve the plan. But it does mean that later this year, when we're talking about budget, I'll be asking to start the first steps on towards the jail project. So we'll have that approval process is separate from this. This is approving the capital plan policy as it is, with the 5-year project list that's identified. And nothing's really changed on that. We don't have a full scope of Jonathan's request for the first floor, and if we were to do any modifications on first floor, if we do second floor, that will come up through July and August and be there before we get into 2024 budgeting. later this summer.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the CIP.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that passes.
And the third item that I have is the creation of a Hubbard County Housing Trust Fund. We've had conversations about this. This comes as a part of the process that was developed under HLDC. It was the trust fund that was going to create the capacity to do the local owner-occupied redevelopment plan and provide additional monies for future housing projects. At this point in time, it's taking on a couple of different items of significance. One is due to change in interest rates on the Pinecrest housing project, there's a gap on delivering that project. And it is approximately a $300,000 gap. So our proposal is that the board would allocate additional money that was unallocated from economic development and a little bit from capital. Remember, we had about $500,000 unallocated in capital and $200,000 unallocated in '23 for economic development to fund that housing trust fund, which would pass through at probably not until 2024, and I'll explain that. But that provides an opportunity with recent legislation that there are matching funds for housing trust funds from the state of Minnesota. Up to $150,000 is dollar for dollar, and then the second $150,000 is at 50 cents on the dollar. So if we fund $300,000, we can apply for $225,000 from the state. So there's value in just that. That $225,000 then would be the seed money for the owner-occupied redevelopment project. The order of operations relative to spending money to get the Pinecrest project done would be all the cash that's been put up front, including the first $300,000 that the board allocated to that. I can't remember if it's the principal loan, $4.1 million, or if it's the abatement loan, about $1 million. One of those two would be applied first, and then the other one of those two would be applied. First is cash, second and third are the two loans, and then this $300,000 would really be the withholding, the final payouts at the end of the construction, so it wouldn't be paid until June or July or even August of next year. So the money would, even though it's unallocated in '23, it really wouldn't be spent till '24, so we would have capacity on that. That's what the proposal is. That's how we close the gap on the Pinecrest. That's how we apply for the matching funds from the state of Minnesota, and that's how we roll out a local owner-occupied redevelopment program, hopefully before the end of this year, be able to advertise that. As soon as those $225,000 were identified, or were actually landed in our account, the Minnesota Housing Finance is the application process for that grant match. And that has not rolled out yet, although legislatively it was authorized as of August 1st. So it should be coming out soon. So I know that's a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces in that. But it's putting us in a good position to add housing now, to add money to provide housing support for the people who are already here, and still provide the opportunity for investment in future housing projects. The original proposal was for the Housing Trust Fund to be owned by HLDC. This proposal is for the county to own it, which means that we can fund HLDC initiatives, HRA initiatives, anything related to housing in Hubbard County, and the control would be this board for the determination of how to use those dollars.
Mr. Chair, if I could actually read something from the Executive Director's Report from Liz from the Hubby, because we actually talked about housing this last week, and a lot of the money that the state is giving out, areas are looking at having homeless shelters. And as you know, my hubby has a 5-year plan for family, for the whole family. And so I think this, what she said in her executive director's report last Friday is supportive of what we're trying to do in this county, which is to provide housing, but to provide workforce housing. So I'm just gonna read this, just a few sentences. Homeless shelters typically require people to exit within 30 days, and that is hard to do when there isn't affordable housing or available housing, so the shelter guests move from one shelter to the next. For upward mobility, it is far better to use resources to simply build the housing and provide the supports to keep people housed. If other organizations have different goals or missions, then it would make sense to them to open shelters. Meanwhile, we have 2 types of emergency shelters for Mojave. We hold a lease on 5 different apartments with written agreement with the landlord that we can move people in and out of the unit. And when those are full, we have openings to provide the necessary paired supports. We use hotel motels for shelter. I will be presenting a national webinar at the National Alliance to End Homelessness on our strategies for addressing homelessness. We are somewhat unique for a rural program to have the range of services that we do: prevention, shelter, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, supportive housing, and rental assistance. And so what Jeff was talking about in our county, we're trying to address the housing situation by providing stable, long-term housing for residents here. And so I think we're on the right track. Instead of looking at, just providing homeless housing, we're looking to provide housing for people that live here. And the same, if we can get the housing rehab off the ground, that will allow people to live where they're existing in houses that probably don't have really good living conditions, but they could still then have money to fix up.
And to summarize, we have 2 negatives and 2 positives here, or 1 negative and 2 positives. The interest rates went up, creating the funding gap, so we have to address the funding gap to finish the project, which is the $300,000 needed. The 2 positives is the legislature passed something where we can get a grant. So if we stick that 300 in, we're gonna get that extra 225, we'll have a funded housing trust fund right out of the gate then. So very positive there, and then the second is, positive is the county will be in control of the
What-
trust fund now.
I've got a question then. Who can apply for these funds? Is it private individuals, developers, or is it limited to development commissions?
No, the fantastic thing about a housing trust fund is it's very flexible.
Okay.
So at one point, in Cook County, I proposed the idea of bonding for $5 million to fund a housing trust fund, and then create an incentive that simply said any developer that develops 2 bedrooms gets $25,000, 3 bedrooms, $35,000. And the hope would be that would mean they'd be able to deliver a housing unit at cost and take the money from the trust fund as their profit on that project. And that $5 million of investment would have been about 200 units if they were all used in that way, whether it be privately or, developed through an RDC or something like that, would have created about $20 million worth of tax capacity. So these housing trust funds are really flexible. We would have to create the parameters for people to apply for other and future projects. One of the next projects, the rest of the parcel that's not being developed with the Pinecrest is owned by HLDC, and the hope there would be to, we've applied for funding through congressionally designated funds to put the infrastructure in. And if we put the infrastructure in, then either HLDC can be the developer, or they can offer lots available for development, one way or the other relative to that. Those would be owned. Those would be new owner home, new homes for purchase. There's also 20 or 40 acres to the east and the west of that. So if we get the infrastructure in, we would hope that the people who own those plots would also make them available for local development. So It's a good question. No, we'd have to identify the process and the limits, but private or public opportunities for housing development would be available. One other legislative issue that came up this year is that MMCDC was awarded a $100 million fund for first-time homeowner programs, and they've been awarded that statewide. So they have capacity to do first-time homeowner projects statewide. It would be fantastic if Hubbard County had the opportunity to develop 20, 40, 60, 100 new units that would all be eligible if the purchasers were eligible for first-time homeowner credits to be able to get into those spaces. But right now, we don't have anything going up that would be in the price range for a first-time home buyer. There's nothing being built in the market for that person. So what we do publicly with funds is help to make the conditions where private developers can develop. They're willing to build. They just need property that's available for development. I got a call from Mary the other day. There was somebody that was saying, hey, are there lots available for development? We have time and ability to build homes right now, but we don't have a place to build them. So we're working with them to identify where those pieces would be. The biggest challenge, if they're not connected to water and sewer, it really makes the price jump. So
Some of them that are vacant in the city connected to water and sewer have high specials, which
Yep.
makes it not very affordable. And currently, the median income in Minnesota is 65,000, but the median house price is 350,000, and so there's such a gap.
Yeah, I think they talk around, you should be making around $75,000 a year to afford a $350,000 house. And in Hubbard County, the median income is 56,000. So we've got quite a gap there
Yep.
to get that
yeah.
taken care of.
So what we're trying to do is create all those conditions to answer your question directly. Both public and private development can be funded out of a housing trust fund, really, really flexible. And this one is written in a way that this board is responsible to and for that fund.
No.
Okay. I was reading through it, and it looks like there's a couple of conflicts between some statements. One would be on page 74. It says the Hubbard County Housing Trust Fund to be and maintained by the county, Hubbard County. And then on page 70, the next page, that next, right under the trust fund's distribution, that the trust fund program, that seems to say the same thing. Administered by Hubbard County, but then when you get down to trust fund commission's powers and responsibilities, and then trust fund commissions, that's from the definitions, that's the HLDC. And then number 5, it says maintain the trust fund account. So that seems to conflict with the other two.
Am I looking at the right page?
Set page 75, right? Isn't that where you're at, Tom?
Right.
Under trust fund powers and responsibilities, I think that's where Tom was.
Yeah, trust fund commissions, or so in the definition, commissions is the HLDC. 5, maintain the trust fund account, but then you further back in 74 and then the top of 75, they say Hubbard County.
And they were all intended to be changed. Like I said, this was originally drafted as HLDC.
Yeah, so you're on page 73, Tom, where you say commission means HLDC.
Right.
Should be changed to the Hubbard County Commissioners.
Yep, so the definition needs to be changed to be Hubbard County Board of Commissioners,
Okay.
Yep.
and then it's correct all the way through.
Yep.
Commission is a term that's used in the language relative to the Housing Trust Fund, so page 73, that would be what would change, and then the use of the definition later would be correct.
That would be correct.
Yep, no, that was intended to be.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to clarify. We'll start off at the very beginning, the $300,000 seed money. I feel that should be applied to the program so we can get that $225,000. But then I feel that the HLDC should apply for the $300,000 for the gap funding instead of making that, it seems almost like in federal government where they might have a good policy or a good bill in place, and then earmarks start getting added on, and then you gotta kinda hold your nose to vote for it or whatever. And that's where, like I'm saying, I'm thinking we're getting it's almost like we have to give them $300,000. And I think they should go through the applying process just like everybody else would. I feel they have the votes to get the $300,000.
You're exactly right. What I should say specifically is that HLDC, as the developer of this project, would have to apply for funds out of that based on this principle.
And then that's the same thing with page 75 there, under the trust fund commission's powers and responsibilities. I had the same thing, if it was HLDC, where number 2, where it says review and approve. Now, if that's changed where it's us board is going to review and approve, I think that's where we should have the final approval on projects, not the HLDC.
Yes.
Okay. And the same-
And if you read under the trust fund powers and responsibilities, and it says the commission, so if we go back up into the definitions and the commission is the Hubbard County Board of Commissioners, then it cleans it up. As a matter of fact, the Housing Trust Fund Committee and the commission are probably redundant, except they're just used in different ways.
Okay.
So if we just change the commission to be
What
the
about
Hubbard
that?
County Board of Commissioners, then all of that would flow.
Yeah.
You want to, in that case, in the future, is this board gonna wanna have a committee?
Or-
You know, right now, this board could be designated as the committee,
Yeah. And I
rather than
think,
having to change it later.
and I think some of the other things like, investigate and recommend additional sources of money for deposit to the trust fund. I mean, that's probably something more that the HLDC or the HRDC or the HRA perhaps has more experience in this board. But I'm sure that they would like to do those things for us too, because they would be, if they can get money for our trust fund so we can give them the money back type of a thing, I think those would all be on board on something like that.
And for right now, having the money owned by the Hubbard County Board makes a lot of sense. HRAs have access to different resources than HLDC as a nonprofit has access to. So I think you're exactly right in there. It's in everybody's best interest to work together. But for right now, I think it's really important for this board to understand that they're gonna see the applications and make the approvals for money in and out of that fund.
Good. Well, that changes everything then with the committee being the Hubbard, or the commission being the Hubbard County Board. Maybe I should say that louder.
I think we got it.
Okay,
Everybody in the room understood.
perfect.
Well, do you want to make a motion with one change and that make sure that this commission is changed to Hubbard County Board?
Yes, I'll make the motion to accept the trust fund. Yeah, I had some other things here, but since that's all been changed, so I make a motion to accept the trust fund and the changes to this draft, where the commission is the Hubbard County Board of Commissioners,
And the additional funding?
and the additional
And the
fund.
$300,000, which allows us to apply for that grant as soon as it's available.
Yeah. and-
Any money out would be an application process.
Yes.
Yep.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Passes.
And then item 8D was the selection of the Extension Committee appointment.
Yeah, we had, I think 3 applications, and did a little review at the Extension Committee to get some input from them, and my recommendation would be to recommend Nancy Utke for appointment to the Extension Committee.
I like that you actually are able to find 3 candidates,
Yeah, that was great.
It's something I struggle with in these kinds of appointments.
Lots of phone calls.
Yeah. And what you said at extension Thursday night, I don't know if you need a motion, but I'll make a motion to accept Utke as the extension designee for District 1.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's done. Now we can get on to committee reports. Let's go first.
Quick, with Char's doing Heritage, just don't forget, next week already, the fair is coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And Tom, Friday is senior day, if you've responded at all, so anybody that's interested in going for that,
Oh,
I'll be out of
serve
town.
lunch there.
the $500, was that check sent to them?
I don't know that it's been sent, but it was in the budget and identified.
Okay,
I'll coordinate with that.
okay.
We'll get documentation so we can request the check. We typically need some sort of an invoice. The first question is it's been set aside, and then we need some request for the fund so we can cut a check, but we can do that quickly.
I asked Connie if they had to apply for it, or if they applied for it each year, and she said, well, they just sent us a check, so I guess she didn't understand either.
There's documentation that goes in the auditors in the paper vault, so that but we'll take care of it.
And that was it, except Heritage, and Char's got all the notes, but positive in the money situation, it's getting positive. We had another positive cash flow last month. And, residents are, geez, say it was 4 more deposits to move into Manor, so that's coming up. Living Center's getting more interest, and we hired 10 new employees, and I think there was 1 that exited, so we're gaining ground.
Good.
And then, of course, the contract will
Yep.
be negotiated this next week, and you've heard it's Knut Nelson's, so now we just have to get the contract put together, get it executed.
So I'll continue on with just specifics of what Dave said. There's 0 staffing from the nursing pool. The Living Center, Manor, and cottages were all in black. So for the month, this is for financials for May, and there was no county dollars involved in this. Heritage had a positive at 10,911, the cottages 25,655, and the Living Center 33,923. So for a positive of $70,489, and it's been years. So it is moving in the right direction, so we're thrilled about that. Retention schedule for staffing is at 75%. A year ago, it was at 44%. Turnover is at 58%. A year ago, it was at 83%. So things are coming together for the staff. As of July 15th, there will be 20 out of 26 apartments filled at the Manor, and the board voted to update the 6 that are vacant. Some of the apartments haven't had anything done since the original build. So that will include flooring, lights, and appliances. They did renovate 2 one-bedroom apartments, and they were rented out as soon as they were done. So we have high hopes. Cottages are 17 out of 18. We approved 2 air conditioning units for the laundry department, and then a water heater for the Manor, a backup water heater. And Steph is working on getting the 2nd floor open at the Living Center. There's just needs to be a few more things put into place on that. The HRA signed a contract with the HRDC to manage, and the HRDC is hiring a management firm. I believe I know who it is, but I don't have documentation to. So anyway, the departments themselves will be managed by a management company. So I think that'll be a really good move.
So are they being managed right now? Is that effective July 1st?
The HRDC signed a contract over the weekend with the HLDC just for the weekend, and then just till they could get things up and running this week.
I think they were active yesterday.
Were they active
You
yesterday?
know,
Okay.
I don't know if things got done, but I know they were working on it.
Okay. And then for HIP, I'm just gonna go over some stuff. So HIP has 3 webinars. I've attended 2. The next one is in August, I think it is. Put on by a former cop, Jermaine Galloway. So quickly, he travels the United States and talks about the drug culture. So cannabis legalization is all about the money. Anytime you normalize drugs, kids use it more and the availability becomes cheaper. Delta 9, which is currently available legally because it's sold under a hemp product. No one's testing what's in the bottle, so it could be higher than the 3% THC allowed. But the biggest thing about Delta 9 that will continue even after the state of Minnesota gets everything put in place is that it's synthetic and it doesn't show up in a drug test. So the harm in that is anybody can use it, a bus driver, you know, he gave that as an example. Because no matter who uses it, it won't show up in a drug test. Synthetic cannabis are sold currently at gas stations. They're a big seller. They're finding that there's been an increase, especially in seizures in the emergency room, which is caused from this. It also causes an increase in domestic violence, self-harm, and schizophrenia. And then the extracts that they're using, I'm gonna go into e-cigarettes and vaping now. So the last one was on e-cigarettes and vaping. They're using extracts of propane and butane in the materials, whatever they're putting in the e-cigarettes, and that causes throat cancer. They've also found now that e-cigarettes and vaping are as addictive as cigarettes, and no one is measuring the nicotine amount, so a lot of times the nicotine is higher in e-cigarettes than they are in actual cigarettes. They have many different flavors, none of which have actually been approved by the FDA, but the market is so vast that there isn't even enough staff to try to bring people into legality selling it. Fruit flavors are their favorite. 14% of high schools and 3% of middle school age are currently vaping using e-cigarettes. It's been shown that just after 3 months of use, there's an increase in heart and lung disease of the students. There's a 55% increase in depression and anxiety, and it increases alcohol addiction. Street sales for when all the marijuana stuff balances out in Minnesota, street sales will actually increase because the price will continue to be lower, and that's the lowest price wins. And it's lower because the people selling on the street don't pay taxes and they don't have overhead, so they undercut the markets.
That's one of the things where I thought they should still have, if there's gonna be legal cannabis, then if it's not legal cannabis, it would be illegal cannabis, and that would still be against the law. I mean, if they are truly trying to eliminate the black market, they didn't put anything in place to actually do that. So it's,
And as I listen to these, you know, they're really Debbie Downers. Because it's pretty depressing. And so I just decided I'm gonna take a really positive note. You know, Angie talked about there's a lot of stuff in Hubbard County going on, positive in the prevention. So I'm just gonna declare that Hubbard County is gonna be a leader in the state of the Minnesota nation. The youth are gonna realize how destructive this is, and they're gonna opt for better things out of life. Most of this stuff really is, it starts out as a good time and then it becomes an addiction, and it leads you downhill. And instead of people would just take a little time to form relationships, positive relationships, move forward with life, we would all be better. Because we as adults sometimes are not very good examples. So I think we can do something different than just fall further down. And I think that's all I have, because I shared with you about Mojave. We did have one interesting discussion about Mojave, and I was gonna actually have a phone conversation with Liz. Board members talked about how they had been victimized, or they're seeing people victimized, whether it's, you know, whatever race they're in. Well, I got to thinking, I'm not trying to minimize what happens to people, but if we only stay in the victim mode, I mean, one person shared, and they're in their 70s, and they're still trying to deal with what happened. And if we never move out of the victim mode, we cannot move forward in life. And Liz is really good about taking ideas and trying to bring out the positive and move people forward. So I'm gonna have a conversation with her this week. How in the Mojave Board, we can even talk about, how can we move people forward from being a victim?
It's an addiction like any other addiction. I mean, people can help you,
Yes,
but you have to.
we have to
you
be
have
willing to
be
receive the
willing
help.
to do the work yourself.
Yep,
Exactly.
so, anyway, I have hopes for that too.
Ted?
Let's see, I'll just piggyback on extension that Dave and I were at last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago. Anyhow, they'll be presenting their budget, I believe, in August. We talked about, so there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about besides what you talked about. And of course, I didn't take
They're
any.
trying to move, the one employee to, they're asking the budget will be to move the
Yeah,
one
to-
employee more hours.
More hours, yeah.
And I think hopefully they'll get a hold of you, Jeff, and get on a work session, because I think they have a compelling case based on the success they're having with some programs.
Yep.
I think them coming and presenting to you, you'll see, ooh, okay, I'm surprised how many people are taking advantage of these programs and stuff. And
Well, that's
it's quite popular.
wonderful, because
Was it like
that's
the
what it was
canning-
designed for.
The canning thing was 200 some people.
You're kidding?
No, that was packed.
Wow, that's fabulous.
Interesting, yeah.
And there again, it goes out to, how do people find out about these programs that are available? And some of them at no cost.
Yep.
And it's, like I say, if somehow we can get the word out to more people on these things. And I know they talked a little bit about Mary Jo and how the person who's in place to help take her place for the fair. So everything is, sounded pretty good with extension. Another meeting I had was HRA. I was there as part of the HRDC, all these H's trying to get squared away. I thought it was a really good meeting. Everybody seemed to want to work together, and it was a unanimous vote to try to work out something with HRDC. And it took a few days, but it did get taken care of, and hopefully, I have quite high hopes for the HRA too, just like with extension, with a lot of my committees. It's, I don't know, it's just a positive time right now, I guess.
I forgot to mention, and I'll just interject it here. So the HRDC plans to come with the HRA board to the work session in August and present the budget
Okay.
for next year.
And then we had our managers meeting. I got to participate in that. It was compelling presentation on payroll stuff. UKG or whatever the initials are. Doesn't sound like it's going to affect us board members. We'll still be putting in per diem sheets and stuff like that. Probably would have to have some kind of instruction myself if I was an employee and had to go through all what they're going to have to go through. But, and I'm assuming, just reminds myself here, I'm sure there's a little bit of hiccups in the program. I'm going to talk out loud here because I got paid more last pay period than I normally do, and I wanted to find out why that was. And let's see, I think that was it. Short and sweet.
We had quite a few meetings. I'll just highlight a couple things out of 4 of them. One of them was Dancing Sky, Council on Aging. Besides the business meeting, we also had someone give a pretty good presentation on dementia and maybe 5 key messages of dementia. One of them is dementia is not a normal part of aging. Maybe some examples is for dementia, an early sign is memory loss that disrupts your daily life. But for a normal part of aging, sometimes forgetting a name or appointments, but remembering them later. And for someone with dementia, challenges in planning or solving problems. But a normal part of aging would be making occasional errors when balancing a checkbook, things like that. And there's a pretty good list here. It's pretty interesting of What's early sign of dementia? What's normal part of aging? So just because you forget a name doesn't mean you have dementia.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty well what it says. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. Dementia is not just about having memory problems. When you get into later stages of dementia, it can affect your mobility, which is quite a handicap. It is possible to have a good quality life with dementia. People need to be patient with someone who has it and just be understanding, take more time to listen to them. I mean, it might take them a little while to get their message out, but you just got to give them more time. And there's more to the person than dementia. You know, they've got a story like everybody else. They had a life. I thought it was a good presentation on that. And then moving on, Parks Board had that meeting. I think the only thing that I was going to mention was that land exchange that we approved for Lake Benedict to give land to the DNR. I think that's gone through already, but the DNR didn't yet fulfill their part of it, the exchange of land over here to us. It wasn't, it could have been in that thing that they signed, but then that was a lot more complication as far as the processes. But they haven't fulfilled that part yet.
Well,
This-
Friday, I meet with Sarah Stroman, the DNR commissioner.
Okay.
If that's still, that, if maybe I can kind of bring that up.
Yeah, maybe just mention it. That, hey, we were looking for this little piece of land over there by Heartland Park.
Heartland Park, yep.
Had the Crow Wing, one watershed, one plan. We drafted and approved the bylaws for the policy committee. And we also approved the list of names for the Citizen Advisory Committee, which included John from Beltane. And have a number of ag producers. RDO is one of them, which would be a good one. Have their voice in what's going to be going on. And then Kitagami Library, in response to David's suggestion of several meetings back about a booking deal going there. Actually, it was against the Kitagami Library policy to have a booking deal going to a location that's real close within a certain distance of the library. But they're doing something that just as good, maybe better, is that they're actually, the Heritage is a card holder themselves, and what the library does is bring a batch of books over there to them so that they got their own little library right there.
Good.
And then they rotate that on a regular basis.
That'll work.
Yep, yeah, that'll work. That should work pretty well. And then that's all I have.
So when you were talking about dementia, one thing when I did that simulation of that, what I remember is it takes them 20 seconds to process anything said. But if I'm talking to you and you don't respond for 20 seconds, I'm already asking you the next question.
Yeah.
And so then they have to start all over again.
That was one of the exercises in the presentation, was does this stop for 20 seconds, and she counted it down, and you just had to look at somebody. And
Yeah, it seems
20
like a
seconds.
long
I know,
time.
it's a long time, but you gotta give them that much time to process what you
Yeah.
said before you go on to something else.
And I wouldn't have known that if they hadn't told me. So I think a lot of people just don't even know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all I have, and then, any meetings to note? A work session.
Work session next week, we're gonna be, we've got these scheduled, and we'll be talking to, which group was it? I forget, there was one other group that was planning on bringing a budget request and an overview, either at July or August.
Kitsagami,
Mississippi.
oh, Mr.
Oh,
Paul.
no, yeah, the Mississippi One Watershed, One Plan. Zach sent out, that Monday I was at the HRA meeting. He sent out the budget and the work plan. And we just gotta give it the final okey-dokey. But I thought, I asked if Zach, excuse me, could present, because he would have more details than I myself would be, having not been there.
Did Melissa respond saying she'll be there? I know she had a conflict with a audit, I think. Was she gonna,
She's gonna be there right at 9, so she can present and then be back for her.
so she'll be here?
She-
Oh, okay, good.
And then we'll be working this month internally as department managers on assembling a budget, and you'll see that, I don't know if you're gonna see it on August 1st, which is the first meeting, or August 8th, which is the work session, but sometime that first week in August, you'll be getting the preliminary 2024 sheets.
Anything else?
Oh, the one item that I did forget to bring up is we will be, we did an internal posting for county assessor position. And that means that I'd like to have interviews next week. What day is today? 5? Yeah, closing is Friday this week. I'd like to have interviews next week, and wondering if one or two of you are interested in participating in those interviews.
I'm gone.
What day again?
We don't have a day picked. That can be at your schedule. I think I'm here all week next week. I think next week any day is open. But we typically have one or two commissioners involved in a department head interview.
I probably could.
Okay, we will, to meet the deadline of appointing somebody, we'll have that on our 2 weeks, 4th, 11th, 18th, July 18th board meeting in order to make that appointment with the state before July 26th, which is our 90 days, which you received that letter a while ago.
I will be here next week. Of course, Tuesday, we got the work session. Wednesday, I have a Healthy Hubbard County at 10, and then I have Friday open.
So why don't I set a time or two
Okay.
for the actual date of that, and I probably won't have that till Thursday or Friday. And then I'll just email, and whoever's available to meet make it the time that we have, one of the first two choices that we have. I just don't have that information yet. Maria's out of the office today, and I'll have to find out what Gina's schedule is. So if we get it set up and scheduled, and then pick one or two times, and somebody can respond to be available, we'll just do it that way.
I was kind of holding back to see if somebody else wanted to go for it first. So, that's a good way to do it. Okay. Anything else? If not, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we are adjourned.